Okay, so today we are going to start chapter 8, which is on photosynthesis. So we already went over cellular respiration, guys. That happened mostly, especially for eukaryotes, in the mitochondria, gives us a large amount of ATP. So with cellular respiration, we are starting with glucose and we are transforming that to fuel ATP. And then our cells can use ATP for energy. So that was the process of cellular respiration. Now we're going to go over photosynthesis, which for plants and some prokaryotes, what photosynthesis is the process to obtain that sugar, that glucose, that then can go to the mitochondria and be converted into ATP. In other words, us, animals, we can just go out, eat some food, we got some glucose in us. Plants, they don't have mouths to do that, so they are generating their own glucose that then once again can be transferred over to the mitochondria. Okay, so two different types of organisms. We have autotrophs and heterotrophs. We'll go over heterotrophs in a minute, but autotrophs, they can make their own food. All right, and I'm not talking about you guys going over to the kitchen and being like, hey, I'm going to make myself a sandwich. No, you did not make your own food, okay? This is literally, like plants, they can take in sunlight and make food out of it. Okay, it's pretty amazing, right? So that's an autotroph. These are our producers, all right? Most of our autotrophs are going to use sunlight to go through photosynthesis, and that's called a photoautotroph. So what we're going to do here, guys, is we're going to talk about photosynthesis, about the whole process. Here's a picture of a rainbow, all right? So we're going to be using that light. And sometimes we can see all the different colors, but most of the time it's just white light. Hopefully the lights already went out. All right, so heterotrophs. 1 second here. Okay, so heterotrophs, these are going to be organisms that cannot make their own food. This is us. Instead of being able to make our own food, we are going to, eat the producers or eat something that the producers have made. So again, we're heterotrophs. We cannot make our own food. So here's some different organisms where photosynthesis is able to be performed in. So we have plants, algae, protists, and some prokaryotes, okay, which is kind of weird because what we're going to do for photosynthesis is it's going to occur in the chloroplast. Well, prokaryotes, they don't have chloroplasts, right? And if you remember from mitochondria, that inner membrane was very folded to increase the surface area. And with increasing that surface area, we were to generate more ATP. So for the chloroplast, like I said, prokaryotes, they don't have one, so how are they going through photosynthesis? Well, what will happen is prokaryotes, if you guys remember, let me bring up my pen here real quick. So prokaryotes are going to have outer membrane, good enough, which is our cell wall. And then they're going to have an inner membrane, which is a cell membrane, okay? But what we're going to do for prokaryotes that are able to go through photosynthesis, what we're going to do is we are kind of going to fold that inner membrane a little bit, okay? I'm only going to fold it in a few areas here. So that cell membrane is going to get folded, and in folding it, that is going to allow us to increase the surface area so that that membrane can actually act almost like a chloroplast, and then the whole process of photosynthesis is going to occur right here from inside the area to the outside in between the two membranes. Okay. So again, moral of that is if they do not have a chloroplast, they are going to use their membranes in order to go through photosynthesis. Okay, so here's a picture of all the different organisms that can photosynthesize. All right, so we're going to go through a bunch of different chemical reactions in order to have this whole process of photosynthesis occur. We are going to use some enzymes, just like we did with cellular respiration, okay? And the last thing there, guys, the chloroplasts, like we said, they're going to be very similar to bacteria, and some bacteria can photosynthesize, again, using their two membranes, the cell wall and the cell membrane. Right? The big thing with photosynthesis is the plants are going to use this pigment, and it's called chlorophyll. It's a green pigment. Now, with colors, why is something green? Well, something is green because what's going to happen is the sunlight is going to come in, and whatever color it might be, it's going to absorb every single color of the rainbow except for the color it is. That color is going to be reflected. So when we see plants as green, here's what happens, guys. Sunlight comes down, hits the plant. That light then reflects off of the plant, the part that's not absorbed, and then hits us in the eyes. So what happens is sunlight comes down, red, blue, yellow, orange, red, all these different colors, they get absorbed by the plant. Green, on the other hand, gets reflected by it, that color green, and then that reflection is sent to our eyes, and that's why we see it as green. Yeah, so if we were actually talking about the plant with respect to reflection and absorption, the plant is actually every color except green when you think about it, because it absorbs every color except green. It doesn't absorb green. In contrast, it reflects green back to us. So not every single plant cell is going to have a chloroplast or a whole bunch of chloroplasts. There's an area called the mesophyll, okay, which you guys can see here. We have the outside of the leaf. The mesophyll, they're going to be located down just a little bit. And the mesophyll is going to be where most of those chloroplasts are, okay? If you look at the top, there's an epidermis. That's like the same thing as us. Our top layer of skin is our epidermis. The outermost layers are dead, okay? And that's more of a protection thing for us. Plants pretty much do the same exact thing. Other plant structures, plants have these stomata. They are on the underside of leaves. They look like this, okay? They're like little coffee beans pretty much. And what they are going to do is they are going to open and close. What that does is allows carbon dioxide, CO2, to enter the plant, so that's how it gets its air, and it allows oxygen to leave. Oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis. Very good for us that the plants have this byproduct, but the oxygen is going to leave through the stomata as well. So if for some reason the stomata cannot open, O2 levels are going to build up inside the plant. CO2 levels are not going to rise in the plant because it can't take carbon dioxide in. And the plant is ultimately not going to get air and probably going to die. Inside of our chloroplast, if I draw one out for you here very quickly. So here is our chloroplast. We have an inner membrane. We also have an outer membrane for our chloroplasts. Sorry, my drawing is not great. This is going to be our outer membrane. And here we have our inner membrane. And I know we did these diagrams already on a previous chapter, but just to give you a refresher on them. Then we're going to have little stacks of pancakes. Each one of these individual pancakes, not talking about the whole stack, just one pancake. All right, I'll even color one in for us here. One of them is called a thylakoid. Thylakoids are going to be made out of phospholipids, just like our cell membrane. All right. A whole stack of them called a granum. And they also have a fluid portion of it surrounding all of our granum and our thylakoids. And that's called the stroma. Okay? So there's all your parts to a chloroplast. The thylakoids, like the one I colored in there, they're going to be filled with the pigment chlorophyll. All right? So there is your structure of a chloroplast. All right, so here's the book structure, guys. I like mine better because it's not three-dimensional, a little easier to read. Here's our full chemical reaction for photosynthesis. So we're going to take in carbon dioxide. How many molecules do we need? Well, we need 6. We're going to take in water. We need 12 water molecules. We're also going to take in some light energy, which is sunlight. We'll talk about the wavelengths and all this stuff in a few minutes. Out of it, we are going to get C6H12O6, which is glucose. Okay, now if you notice, we only get 1 glucose molecule out of it. We're also going to get 6 oxygen molecules and 6 water molecules out of it. So why we need 6 carbon dioxides, 12 waters, and then giving off 6 oxygens and 6 waters, why we need all of these is to get 1 molecule of glucose. If we only take in 5 molecules of carbon dioxide, we cannot form even 1 molecule of glucose. All right, that's why we need the 6 there. All right, so the whole thing is going to start with sunlight. Now, if I go back to the previous equation, it says we're going to need sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. Right? For our first step of photosynthesis, which we're going to go over in the next video, we are going to use sunlight and water. We're actually not even going to worry about the carbon dioxide in the first phase of photosynthesis, okay? But it's all going to begin with the chloroplasts. And the chloroplasts are going to take in sunlight, and along with this, they're going to split water. So it's pretty much like a hydrolysis reaction. We're going to take the water, we're going to split it, so we have hydrogens and oxygens. Here's where everything goes. There's our reactants, there's our products for everything. Okay, so that's where all the elements go. These are oxidation reduction reactions, in other words, redox reactions, right? The H2O is oxidized, the CO2 is reduced. We could go through and assign oxidation numbers to each one and show that, but we're not going to worry about that. We'll save you guys some time there. And also, photosynthesis is an endergonic reaction. All right, if you remember last chapter, we went over exergonic and endergonic reactions. Exergonic are ones that give off energy. Endergonic ones are ones that need energy. So in order for photosynthesis to happen, we need energy. Where do we get that energy from? The sun. Okay, so it's not like the plant has to be like, okay, we need some energy, let's go make some energy. No, no, no. It's there for them, and the sun provides it. And here's just what we went over, guys. Okay, carbon dioxide becomes reduced. The water is oxidized, okay? So if you remember from 2 chapters ago now, if it loses electrons, it's oxidized. So the water, okay, lost electrons. Carbon dioxide, okay, if it gains electrons, it's reduced. Remember the little acronym I gave you, Leo, the line goes GER, all right? Leo, lose electrons, oxidized, GER, GER, gain electrons, reduced. Okay. So 2 big parts of photosynthesis. We are going to start with part 1, which is the light reactions. These are the ones that obviously, just like they say, they need light. Okay. The second part is called the Kelvin cycle. Now, with the Kelvin cycle, they used to be, when I was in school, they used to be called the dark reactions, which we kind of got rid of that. Instead, we have the light reactions and the Kelvin cycle. If you say dark reactions, people were like, oh, okay, it has to happen in the dark. No, no, no. The Kelvin cycle can still go on during the day. They just don't need light for the Kelvin cycle to occur. So the Kelvin cycle can occur any single time, whether there was light present or light absent. All right. So light reactions, and we'll go through each of these steps I'll show you guys a big picture. We'll draw one out. But big thing with the light reactions, 4 major parts. We are going to split water, so we'll get hydrogen and oxygen out of that. We are going to release oxygen. So if we release oxygen, this is how we are going to be able to breathe. Plants are releasing oxygen through splitting water. We are then going to reduce NADP to NADPH. Now, if you remember from the electron transport chain and the Krebs cycle and glycolysis, all those things there, we had NAD and it turned into NADH. And all that did was it carried these electrons around and got rid of them when it needed to and gained them, and it just kept going back and forth, especially with fermentation. So this molecule of NADP and NADPH, it's the exact same thing as NAD plus and NADH. All right, nothing is different there. Okay, so that's all it is, guys. It's an electron acceptor. All right, and then lastly, what we're going to do is, along with making NADPH, we're also going to make a little bit of ATP. All right, not a whole lot, so not enough to keep the plant running. If it were enough, we wouldn't have a reason for the mitochondria, but it's not enough. We're only generating a few ATPs here, so that's why we still need the mitochondria. Okay. The second part, which is, we don't need light for this part, it's going to happen in the stroma. We are going to form our sugar. We're going to form our glucose. This is the part we're going to need our carbon dioxide. So the plant is going to need to take in some carbon dioxide in order for the Calvin cycle to happen. And we're also going to use the ATP and NADPH from the first part, from light reactions, in order to fuel the Calvin cycle to keep it going. So here is a nice diagram of everything that happens. We have the light reactions. We're going to take in some sunlight. We're going to use water from it. We're going to generate ATP and NADPH. It's going to go to the Calvin cycle. It's going to get used there as long as we are bringing in carbon dioxide. Once the ATP and NADPH get used by the Calvin cycle, they get transferred back into ADP and NADP+, and they're going to go back to the light reactions so that ADP can once again become ATP and NADP+ can turn into NADPH. And once we do all this, we get, if you look down here, which is kind of weird, the Calvin cycle gives us CH2O. That's weird, right? Because we said our equation from photosynthesis gives us C6H12O6. This is not C6H12O6. We're going to need 6 of these sugars to make one glucose, okay? So what this tells us is the Calvin cycle is going to be going around multiple times in order to generate the C6H12O6. And it looks like with one cycle, we're only getting C, H2, and O. All right. Okay, we're good here. We did all that. All right, guys, I'm going to stop it here today, and then we will go on to the light reactions next time. Have a good day, guys.